For those guys who are keen with the seasons, doing season 1, season 2, and so on, this is season number 88 on Life Signatures podcast, and we are talking about urgency, a very important topic that I thought we should discuss, especially if you're interested in being productive and achieving your goals and maybe deploying your God-given purpose. You have got to be urgent. Me and you, we have got to be urgent. And therefore, we're talking about how to achieve more by living with fierce urgency. Not just urgency for that matter, but fierce urgency. And that's what we want to deploy in these episodes. And so the question that we will need to be answering is this: how can I inject urgency in my life? You know, when you're cozy and comfortable and everything is okay, your data is there in the phone, your curtains are there on the windows, and fuel is there in the car, and there's no problem. You need this question: how can I inject urgency in my life? And also, when you're not living your purpose, you're not fulfilled in your life, and you're just there, you also need to ask that question: how can I inject urgency in my life? And I want us to see how that can be done in the subsequent episodes, even as we continue delving into this subject matter. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Life Signatures podcast with Lawrence Namale. Lawrence is a life coach, author, and keynote speaker who loves to tackle different topics on purpose, productivity, and resilience. His mission in life is to awaken all your boundless possibilities available in you. Life Signatures podcast is dedicated to bring to reality every single person who knows that deep down in their gut, there's got to be more to life than this. And now, here is your host, Lawrence Namale.
Urgency is a very important trait for anyone who wants to be productive and to have impact in this life. You cannot have impact with less urgency. You cannot have impact in your life when urgency is not one of the values that you're deploying. And I've said in the previous episode that urgency is one of the things that is needed by every human being. As long as you're breathing in and you're breathing out, you're a human being. You and I, we need to be urgent with our lives. Now, before we can answer the question of how can we get urgency, let me tell you, generally speaking, there are two ways that you can get urgency. And the difference is in the choice. There is urgency that comes naturally, and then there's urgency that you impute upon yourself. I want to talk about the latter later, but then the former is the urgency that comes naturally. You just don't need to do nothing. Just sit back. And for the most part, this urgency in our lives is always created by an adversity. You sit back and do nothing. Just do nothing. Nothing knows how to put life into perspective than adversity does. Nothing knows how to help us to prioritize our lives and create some urgency like adversity, setbacks, crises, heartbreaks. In one of my books, Turn Your Setbacks into Major Comebacks, I talk about several phases that we're going to face in life. Like, I think we are in a life cycle. There is before the crisis, there is at the beginning of a crisis, there is during a crisis, there is just after the crisis. We are in a cycle. We're always in any one of those formats. And the most dangerous phase is after a crisis, after the setback. In this phase, we easily forget the hardships and the setbacks, and because we are now living in abundance, we're like, it's over. The storm is over now. I can see the sunshine towering over the skies. Heaven is over me, and we don't take note. We drop the ball, and we are no longer urgent before another phase comes, which is just before the crisis. and we begin to helter-skelter inject urgency into our lives. What am I saying? I'm saying that when you leave it to life to give you urgency, it's going to be cyclic, seasonal. You're going to be responding other than anticipating and reacting. But urgency is something that we need to deploy on a consistent basis, actually on a daily basis. There needs to be some level of urgency, not just when there is lack of money. Then we become urgent with the kinds of work that we're doing. Of course, that's okay. Or maybe there is a crisis in terms of our health, or maybe lack of peace, or maybe a relationship is on the rocks and we become urgent. Or maybe a physical condition in the body is not so good. You have some non-communicable diseases, and then what happens? You become urgent. Now, urgency is something that a world changer, someone who impacts this world one way or another, someone who's deploying their purpose, it is something they inject into their lives on a daily basis. There are very many incidences where I have had urgency come into my life naturally. And to be honest with us, every one of us in all these years that we're going to be alive, we're going to face a setback or another. And it will be foolhardy, let me say this, it will be foolhardy for us to try and live tiptoeing our lives so that we are avoiding these setbacks and these natural circumstances that cause us to inject a level of urgency. And we normally call these things a wake-up call. We all need wake-up calls at one point in time or another. Sometimes you might even be urgent, living with urgency, yes. But then a wake-up call comes in terms of a crisis or in terms of a setback that just catapults you to a totally different level. And that's where Bob Marley, is it Bob Marley or someone else said that sometimes you don't know how strong you are until being strong is the only option that you have. It gives you another level of urgency, another level of deploying your life. So we basically need this. It will be foolhardy, though, to live our lives in such a way that we are only waiting for these natural circumstances, as in these circumstances that are beyond our control, that external circumstances that people in the SWOT analysis world call threats. We'll only wait for threats so that we can be urgent in our lives. It will be foolhardy for us to do that. Like I said, the most dangerous phase of your setbacks into comebacks life, it is after the crisis, because you have this aura of invincibility that I remember one day, let me tell you this. It happened to me, I remember like it is yesterday. So I was staying with my father in the capital city while I was going for Management Information Systems course. And as fate will have it, he was a minister of the gospel, and he was transferred from the capital city to the Rift Valley, like 300 kilometers away. There was no way I was going to, go back to the city because he didn't have money for hostels. And now the only thing that I needed to do was to get a place where I can be able to stay, and I couldn't get a place where I can be able to stay. So the option was for me to go to the local polytechnic in the Rift Valley, Eldoret Polytechnic, and select a particular course, whatever course it is that I can be able to do. My life had been relegated to basically nothingness or second rate. Like this smart guy, this genius, people call me genius a lot, I don't know why. This genius is now going to be scurrying around for any straw he can scrap on in a tertiary institution to try and get a semblance of education. Urgency was immediately injected in my life, and the only thing I could remember to do, I still remember it like it was yesterday. I went and locked myself into a room, a church house, into a room, and bombarded heavens. I told God how big He is. I told God how He cannot fail to get me a place to stay. I was bombarding heaven. I was reminding God that this is foolhardy for Him not to come through for me, being who He is. I told Him how big He is, how a creator He was, how He did things in 6 days. He cannot fail to give me this breakthrough. And I could do that like the whole day, and if there was, I go to rest, maybe in the living room or in my bedroom. If there is a thought that flashes in my mind that there is an impossibility, it will never happen, I go back to the prayer closet and I bombard heaven again. And I was so urgent in my mind in the way of what I'm allowing to linger into my mind, not to rest, not to meditate. I couldn't get no as an answer. It was not in my vocabulary. In the evening, my father came back. He says, by the way, a family friend has offered you a place that you can be able to go and stay with him and continue doing your course. You guy. Now that was what you call after the crisis, because I remember very well boarding a van from Eldoret back to Nairobi, a very long stretch. I was just playing in my mind the victory that I've just accomplished, a prayer, spiritual victory, so to speak. And when I got back to college, I met one of my teachers, one of my lecturers, and they asked me, how was the weekend? How was the holiday and so on? I said, man, what I went through, I can face just about anything. Bring it on, world. He said, wow, that must have been interesting. But I was wrong. The phase that you go after crisis kind of give you this aura of invincibility where you think that no crisis is going to come back, and therefore there's no need for urgency. Because you know what I'm saying? Why I'm telling you that? I'm telling you that because that urgency that I had in prayer was never revisited on a daily basis. It was basically reserved. And of course another opportunity came, and I'm going to tell you about that another day. It was only reserved for crisis. What I'm communicating to us today is that urgency is needed daily. And if you get to a level where you've achieved urgency or you acquire something through urgency, remember that urgency you had that gave you that breakthrough, remember that urgency and inject it in your life. Make it an opportunity for you to have that urgency on a daily basis. Like now, if I had gone back to my prayer closet every single day and prayed for other things, even my own spiritual life, think of how different things will be for me spiritually, because I am having urgency practiced, lived through my life every single day. So let's not just rely on external forces to create urgency in us. If the external forces create urgency in us, let us be smart enough after the crisis that we've just overcome to use the same urgency that we used to overcome to convert it into a daily force, daily energy, daily urgency. And that's it. That's what I wanted to share with you today. If you like these episodes, please do share and subscribe to this channel. If you're on Google, if you found it on Google, or you found it whatever place it is, subscribe to these channels. If you're on Apple, if you're on Stitcher, just subscribe to Life Signatures and tell as many other people as possible. The more you subscribe, the more we reach more people. So help me reach more people. Help me shine my light into this world through this podcast. Until tomorrow when we go deeper, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Life Signatures Radio. If you enjoyed today's show, subscribe to Life Signatures Radio on iTunes, Stitcher, or visit our website at lifesignatures.libsyn.com. Life Signatures Radio, fresh, clean, and inspiring.